Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive. You guys sent in this guide on replacing AC capacitors.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, I gotta say I was a little intimidated at first.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just seeing all those wires and all the warnings on the unit,
Oh, yeah.
it can be a little scary.
It looks complicated.
Right.
But
But then as I started reading through it, I realized
yeah,
this is actually way more doable than I thought.
absolutely.
And you know what? It could actually save you a ton of money if you can do this yourself.
It really is a surprisingly straightforward process
Yep.
once you break it down.
Yeah.
And the guy does a great job of laying it all out step by step.
Yeah, so let's dive in right like first things first.
Yeah.
Safety, safety, safety.
Absolutely.
Got to make sure
That's paramount.
the power is off.
Yes, before you even think about going near that unit.
Right.
Make sure that power is completely off.
So how do we do that?
So typically there's a disconnect box near the outdoor unit itself,
Okay.
and it'll either have a breaker switch
Okay.
that you can flip to the off position,
Uh-huh.
or it might have a pull-out plug,
Right.
kind of like a giant appliance plug.
Yeah.
And you want to make sure you pull that plug out completely.
Yeah.
And I like to even flip it upside down,
Yeah, that's a good idea.
so there's no chance of it accidentally
Yeah.
getting plugged back in.
While you're working.
Exactly.
All right, so we got the power off.
Yeah.
We're feeling good. We're safe.
Right.
Now we got to actually get to the capacitor.
Yep.
So the guide says we need to access the side panel of the AC unit.
Right. Usually there's a side panel
Uh-huh.
that's,
It's the one with all the scary warning symbols.
yeah, all those scary symbols that look a little intimidating.
Exactly.
But don't worry too much about those.
So to get this panel off,
You'll need a good multi-bit screwdriver.
multi-bit.
Yeah, those are super versatile.
Yeah.
They have different tips for different types of screws,
Right.
because you'll probably encounter a few different ones on that panel.
Okay, good to know. I'm always losing those little bits.
Yeah, and you want to make sure you keep those screws organized.
Right.
You want to lose track of them.
Yeah, I'm picturing myself dropping one right into the grass and never seeing it again.
That's a classic.
Okay, so we got the panel off. Finally, we're in.
Mm.
What are we looking for here? What does a capacitor even look like?
All right, so you're looking for a cylindrical component?
Cylindrical.
Yeah, kind of like a small can.
Okay.
Might not look that impressive at first glance, but this little guy packs a punch. It's responsible for giving the fan and the compressor that initial jolt of power they need to start up.
So like a tiny little power plant for the AC.
Yeah, you could think of it that way.
So how do we know if this little power plant is broken?
All right, well, there are a few visual clues you can look for.
Okay.
A bulging top is a pretty clear sign that it's failing.
Okay.
Or if you see any signs of leaking,
Mm-hmm.
any kind of fluid coming out of it,
Right.
that's bad news.
Okay, and what about burn marks?
Burn marks are another red flag.
Gotcha. Okay, so those are all pretty obvious visual cues.
Right.
But what if it looks fine on the outside?
Ugh. That's where things can get a little tricky,
Oh,
because it could still be faulty.
even if it looks okay.
Even if it looks okay visually,
Okay.
that's why the next step,
Yeah,
discharging the capacitor, is so important.
right. And the guide talks about that.
Yeah.
It mentions using an insulated screwdriver. And to be honest, that whole part sounded kind of scary to me.
I understand why you'd say that.
Yeah, why is that step so crucial?
Well, think of it like this: the capacitor's still holding a bunch of electrical energy,
Even with the power off.
even with the power off.
Okay.
So if you were to touch the terminals without discharging it first,
Yeah.
you could get a pretty nasty shock.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So the insulated screwdriver
Right.
allows you to safely release that stored energy.
So it's kind of like a safety valve,
Exactly.
right? That makes you feel a lot better.
Good.
So we discharge it using the insulated screwdriver.
Yep.
And then what?
Then it's time to disconnect the wires.
Okay, before we do that,
Yes, this is important.
the guide says to take a picture,
Yes.
right?
Snap a picture.
Okay.
Seriously. That picture will be your best friend.
When it's time to put everything back together.
Exactly, because you're going to have a few different wires to deal with.
Okay, so picture taken.
Yeah.
What about the wires themselves?
All right, so you've got 3 main terminals to keep track of.
Right.
The fan terminal
Uh-huh.
usually has a brown wire connected to it.
Okay.
Then you've got the HERM terminal,
Herm terminal.
which is for the compressor.
Okay.
That one often has a yellow wire.
Okay, so brown for fan, yellow for compressor.
Exactly. And then
Yeah.
you've got the common terminal,
Common.
or the C terminal,
Okay.
and that one typically has red and purple wires.
Okay, red and purple for common. Gotcha now.
Yeah.
The guide also mentions something called a hard start kit.
Oh, yeah.
What is
Yeah.
that all about?
So a hard start kit is an additional component that can be added to your AC system, and it helps the compressor start up more efficiently.
Especially in hot weather, I bet.
Especially in hot weather when it's really struggling.
Okay.
So if your system has one of those, you'll need to disconnect those wires as well.
Okay, so we've disconnected all the wires, capacitors discharged.
Right.
What's next?
Now it's time to test that capacitor.
Okay, how do we do that?
So for this, you're going to need a multimeter.
A multimeter?
Yeah, and you'll need to set it to microfarads.
Microfarad?
That's the unit of measurement for capacitance.
Okay.
Don't worry, the guide explains exactly how to do all that.
All right, and what am I looking for in those readings?
So you want to compare the readings you get to the values that are printed on the capacitor itself.
Okay.
So first you'll test between the C terminal and the fan terminal.
All right.
And that reading should be close to the fan's rating, which is usually around 5 microfarads.
Yeah.
Then you'll test between the C terminal and the HERM terminal. And that reading should match the compressor's rating.
Okay.
Which is often around 45 microfarads.
All right, so if the readings are close to those values, we're good.
If they're within about 5%.
5%.
Yeah, you're probably in good shape.
Okay, and what if they're way off?
If they're way off,
yeah,
then it's time for a new capacitor.
All right, so that brings us to the big moment.
Yeah.
The installation of the new capacitor.
Yes, the moment of truth.
The guide makes it sound pretty easy.
It's actually very straightforward.
Okay.
The main thing is just making sure you get a new capacitor that matches the exact specification
On the old one.
of the old one.
Now, what about those universal capacitors?
Oh, yeah. Those can be handy.
The guide mentions the Turbo 200.
Yeah, the Turbo 200 is a popular one.
What's the deal with those?
So universal capacitors can be adjusted to fit a variety of different AC units.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
So they're a good option if you want some flexibility.
All right, so once we have the new capacitor in hand.
Then it's just a matter of plugging everything back in.
All right, so we're carefully reattaught the wires.
Yep. Make sure they're secure.
To the corresponding terminals.
Exactly. And this is where that picture you took earlier is going to come in handy.
All right, so double checking everything against the photo.
Yeah.
This is actually starting to feel a lot less intimidating now.
See.
Like a puzzle I can actually solve.
That's the spirit.
All right, so to recap for our listeners out there, replacing an AC capacitor might seem like a job for the pros, but with the right guide.
Absolutely.
A little patience.
A little bit of bravery.
Yeah, it's something you can absolutely tackle yourself.
And,
saves you money.
it's empowering.
And it's kind of empowering.
It's a great feeling to be able to fix things yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so to our listener, if you're feeling inspired by this,
go for it.
Grab the tools.
Yeah.
Double check those safety precautions.
Safety first.
And get ready to impress yourself.
And, maybe this will inspire you to tackle other home repairs.
That's right.
That you thought were out of your reach.
Maybe next time we'll do a deep dive on plumbing.
Sounds good to me.
All right. Until next time, everybody. Thanks for listening.
Take care.